This screencast will go through the process of back averaging in Persyst. My name is Michael Guest, VP of Research and Clinical Applications for Persyst Development Corporation. Let's go ahead and launch Persyst 14. And first thing I'll point out is at the bottom left corner of the program window, there's a Help button. This has the full user guide that has indications for use, warnings, and also information about configuring and using the Persyst software. For specific clinical applications, we're always happy to connect by web conference to go through the operation of Persyst, answer any questions, and in this case, as we're doing here, we can record ad hoc screencasts to go through any particular clinical application with Persyst. In this case, let's go ahead and return to our discussion of back averaging, which is typically done when you're looking at myoclonic jerks to help average out or to attempt to average out muscle and movement artifact. And some recordings are more amenable to that than others. But the important thing is going to be placing the marks for that averaging very carefully and consistently, because if they're not precisely placed, if they're a little early or a little late, then you end up averaging out the cerebral signal and artifact. And so the placement is going to be the key thing. I'm going to use a recording with left temporal spikes, because that'll be very easy to see the process of marking the effect of creating those averages. Now, you create averages in other parts of the Persyst program as well. For instance, in Spike Review, when I click that, we get a display of averages of spike clusters. Now, in this case, these averages are 1 second. We've got half a second before and half a second after. And then when I go into this window, we see these 1 second windows again, no longer looking at averages. And so these averages for spikes are shorter in duration than what you typically use for back averaging as it applies to myoclonic jerks. And I'll show how to create a display that has a longer window duration. Now, of course, we also have artifact reduction in Persyst, and that can be used to reduce this, the signal from artifact, separate it from the cerebral signal so we can get a better look at what's happening beneath that. So we've gone to the first seizure here. Again, from the trends or from the comment list, I've sorted this alphabetically, and I pick a seizure from the comment list. Takes us directly to that spot, or you can find it using the trends. And when I click the EEG page button, now we're looking at this, we see some muscle artifact. Of course, you can use a high-frequency filter, but applying an aggressive high-frequency filter will attenuate the EEG as well. It doesn't discriminate between EEG and artifact. And so, since that's undesirable, we can click the arrow button at the top and spatially separate the muscle artifact from the cerebral signal, in a sense seeing through the artifact, and we can see the seizure more clearly there. Now, we also render the original signal. We superimpose that. So you always see the original EEG when you're applying artifact reduction. Now, in the case of myoclonic jerks, we also have movement artifact typically. So that is not separated through the process of performing the artifact reduction, which is another reason why there are cases where you want to go ahead and try to apply that technique to the EEG. Now, to do it, you select the Tools button, and we launch Insight 2. Now, Insight 2 has been around for many generations of Persyst software, but it's actually a skin. So what we're using and looking at in the program is Persyst 14, and this set of buttons and the tools that are provided are Persyst 14, but this is a different skin for the program that provides additional controls to do things like back averaging. Let's go ahead and get started now. When we launch Insight 2 from a fresh installation, it's going to look like this, with all the displays being shown, toolbars moved over to the left so that we make sure that we're displaying them all regardless of screen configuration. Let's go ahead and tidy this up. And once we do that, close the program. It remembers what we've done and how we position things. I'm going to close these displays. Just leave our comment window up there on the right. And all these toolbars are movable. You can grab them. There's a little grip on the left side of that. And what we can do is move these around and give us a little bit more vertical screen real estate for the waveform display. And again, that's retained once you close and reopen the program. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and look for some things to mark. I'm going to go ahead and change the montage here to an average reference montage. You can use any montage you like, actually, for this sort of activity. So if you're doing mapping, because what we're going to be doing is launching to the voltage plot program, it's important to know that if you're doing mapping, then some sort of referential montage is ideal. For back averaging, though, you may want to use bipolar montage. So just for the purposes of getting started, I'm going to page back and look for some things to mark. And since I'm going to be marking spikes to do the back averaging and show the process of that, I'm going to go ahead first and zoom in on the page a little bit. And to do that, I'm clicking on the page duration button here, and you can increment it using the up-down arrows, or you can just select the value that you want. And then I can grab the EEG page and move it to the middle. The thing I want to do is mark precisely the peak. And once I've done that, then to place a comment, I just start typing. And I'm going to put an @ symbol in front of it so that when I sort the list alphabetically, it's at the top of the list. You use any text that you like, though. It's not limited. And if I look over on the right side here to the comment list, and I sort this alphabetically by clicking that text label at the top, there's the first mark that I've placed. And so I'm going to go back through the EEG and look for some more things to mark. You can use any page duration you want. That looks like something I'd like to mark, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on that. Make it easier to see the peak. Placed it pretty well to begin with. I'm going to nudge it over just a bit. Marked another one. And I'm just going to mark a few of these. And again, to mark, I place the cursor, I just begin typing, and it brings up the comment window automatically. I don't have to click a button to bring up the comment window once I begin typing. It assumes I want to place a comment, and you can assign custom hotkeys to comments as well. So I've placed 4 of these. I think that's enough. You get the idea of the marking. The next step is to create a display to show the average waveform. So I've just gone ahead back and I've selected 10 seconds for the page just to give us a sense of where we are in the recording. So I'm going to right click here, and this opens up a menu. So I just right click over on the right side of the EEG page, and I get a menu of choices for the different analysis tools that I can apply. And you see there's quite a bit of these. We have a separate application note available that goes through the function of all of these tools. But I'm just going to pick voltage plot. And as you'd expect, right away I get a voltage plot. I do not get the back averaging yet. That's in the properties. So I can adapt this tool to do that back averaging. I'm going to select properties. Now the first thing I want to select is show average, because that's going to be the average waveform. As traditionally done with spikes, we have half a second before and after. But for back averaging myoclonic jerks, we'll apply a longer duration. You can use any duration you want. I'm going to use something that's fairly common, 1 to 3 seconds. 1 second before, 3 seconds after, you can 4 seconds after. It really depends on what you're looking for. So I'm going to set that to be the duration of the average is a total of 4 seconds. Next thing is I want to select data ranges, because right now it's set to caret time, and that's going to be wherever I click on the EEG page. But I want to use comments that I've placed to serve as cursors. So I'm going to go ahead and select events as cursors and select it. And the map, I'll go ahead and change that while I'm in this dialog. Change it to a different color scheme, blue, white, red, a little bit easier on the eyes. And so let's go ahead and select OK. And now we have a waveform window over on the right that shows that before and after. And it's a little bit off the page here. And so you'll notice there's a blank spot. There's a blank stripe going down the left side of this, and that's the border between these two. And when I put the mouse cursor above that, it turns into a 2-headed arrow. So that's going to be important, because when I click, then the border appears, and I drag this to the left. Now, if I want to look at this a little bit more closely, now I can change the duration. So for instance, if I go to 7 seconds or 6 seconds, I get this full width there. So this you just size to whatever display width you want based on the number of seconds you've configured. Now let's do the averaging. So when I click one of the comments, it says n equals 1 because I've only selected one. Then if I hold down the control key, I can multiple select. Now it says n equal 2. Select another one and another one. Now it says n equals 4. So I've averaged together 4 comments. Importantly, I'm not limited to these comments. I've just selected these because this is what I've hand marked. I can use these automatically placed comments. These are voltage plot comments that were exported from Spike Review. And if I hold down either the control key to individually select, or I can use the shift key to select a range, or I can even just hold down the shift key and mash the down button and select a whole bunch of events to average them together. Now it's averaging 37. So in this case, I've taken manual control of the averaging and determining that point in time in the recording at each point where the center of that average is going to be. And by using either the shift or control key, I can multiple select, indicate the number of points that are going to be averaged here. There's 4 points in time that are part of this average when I've selected those, and there's the display. That is back averaging. Now you don't have to configure this each and every time. You don't have to go to properties or insert vertical adornment and do this over and over again. Instead, you can save this configuration and use it for other recordings as well. Now to do that, I'm going to select montage, save adornment montage, and give it a title. Now by default, it'll use the title of the vertical adornment I selected. But since I've configured this for back averaging, I'm going to give it that name. So here's a nice thing. To the right of the montage dropdown, I now have an adornment dropdown, adornment montage. So when I select NA, it clears the screen. I'm back in the EEG page. Select this. Back averaging display is brought up. And again, I can go back to selecting comments. So once this is configured, the workflow for doing back averaging, that is, hand mark what you'd like to average. In this case, I've hand marked spikes because they're very easy to see in this recording. If you're marking myoclonic jerks, you want to be very precise in where you're marking those to do your averaging. So that's the first step, is to place marks and precede it with an asterisk if you'd like them to be at the top of an alphabetized list. It's not necessary, but makes it a little easier to find them. You could also just use a consistent naming convention and type in a phrase at the top, and it'll restrict the display to that as well. So either one of those will work. Once you've done that, then you would go to your adornment montage to display the back average montage, adornment montage, and then multiple select your events to create the average. That's the process. Again, my name is Michael Guest, VP of Research and Clinical Applications for Persyst Development. Always happy to connect by web conference to answer any questions or to go over any particular application within Persyst. Thank you.